Welcome. You know, one of the important messages we try to transmit to our students is that they should adapt to the local culture in every country where they go. And as we are in Switzerland, we start nearly on time. Bonsoir et bienvenue, chères étudiantes et chers étudiants. C'est votre soirée. Félicitations, ce sont les derniers moments où vous êtes des étudiants et pas encore des diplômés. Vu que vous avez toutes et tous vécu pendant au moins une année à Genève, vous comprenez tous et toutes le français. However, I will nevertheless speak English, not because of the students, because it's also an important message for those who want to work in humanitarian action that you should learn the language of the country, but because of the families and friends who may have come just for one day and will now not even understand the congratulations by the Geneva Academy. So, dear students, this is indeed your evening, and we thank you very warmly that you have chosen the Geneva Academy to finish your professional education, or to make a little pause from your professional life and to come now back into professional life. We hope that you liked it, that you found it interesting, that you didn't find it boring, that you were genuinely challenged, but also that you encountered some interesting people, not only teachers and teaching assistants, but also friends, and some of these friends may become either friends or at least professional relations. I will come back to that for life. And finally, I trust that you have now a very good starting point for your professional life, or a good point to resume your professional life after the executive master. Now, it's not only you who I will thank, but also, and also in your name, your families and friends who supported you, many of you financially, all of you intellectually, and bearing with your different humors provoked by the stress of your courses, but also the good humor provoked by successes and interesting encounters. I would like, obviously, to thank also in your name the teachers who employed very varied methods, who tried all to convince you that their subject is the most important one. I hope you appreciated that, because it's so important to have teachers who really believe in their branches. But you know, this is only a posture. I think all our teachers agree, otherwise they wouldn't teach here at the Geneva Academy, that what is important is that we teach these different branches together, and that every one of us is conscious of the importance of the other branches. And to thank the teaching assistants, who are a kind of Angel Gabriel, you know, transmitting the message. And obviously Angel Gabriel had it easier because he transmitted a divine message, while the message of your teachers is clearly not a divine message, and therefore much more difficult to be transmitted, and the teaching assistants make sure that you understand it, and as you are here, apparently the teaching assistants were successful, and I would also personally thank them very much. But I think also in the name of the teachers and the teaching assistants, we thank you, because the graduation ceremony is always a great victory for all those who were involved in the teaching, because we can have the illusions that it was not only, it was mainly through your efforts, but also through our efforts that this result was possible. But obviously the result wouldn't be possible if we were just teaching. This whole thing must be organized, and where is he? The chief organizer is Danny Diogo, and Lucie Testu. I think both of them deserve, well, you see, are there. Wow, deserve, you know. Because all this. And Nadia Ulabi, the executive manager, whom perhaps many of you will less meet, but believe me that the whole thing wouldn't work without someone managing all this. Then I would also like to thank our two mother institutions, the Graduate Institute for International and Development Studies, where we have this ceremony, and the Faculty of Law of the University of Geneva, represented here by its Dean, Dean Benedict Foy, who will later speak. Some people think that the Academy should be independent. I think it is our great force that we are well anchored in the two eminent institutions of education here in Geneva. And I would also like to thank the Canton of Geneva, who supports us. You can't believe it, with the fees you have to pay, that you would even have to pay more if the Canton of Geneva was not supporting us. And when we speak about support, I would like to thank a foundation which doesn't want to be mentioned. And on the other hand, the Solidarité Internationale of the Canton of Geneva, who accepts to be mentioned, that they give scholarships for some of our students. And I hope that also those who did not benefit from a scholarship understand how essential it is that we have these scholarships. Because imagine if you were studying only with people of a similar social and geographic origin than yourself. First of all, especially in the fields we study here and we want to practice in our professional life, this diversity is essential. And therefore, I promise everyone that I'm a former ICSC delegate, total discretion if you want to give money and never be mentioned. I promise that even the executive manager will not learn your name, although she looks, oh, money laundering? I don't know. Okay, so, and we think that, and I trust that you did not only learn rules. Those who were my students know that I think rules are nevertheless very important. But even I admit that behind rules there are values. And I trust that you will uphold those values now in your professional life, that you will not abandon them for professional, career, political reasons, but will remember that it is essential that these values protect human beings, and the aim of all this is not to make a good case, but to help the most vulnerable, which are the people we are concerned about. You are now only 15 minutes away from becoming alumni and no longer students. And you know, alumni, especially in the branches we study here, have, in my view, a crucial role, because as you know, international law is a law sans droit, ni juge, ni gendarme. Without a legislation, most of the time without a judge, and without an international policeman. But you are the gendarme and you are the juge of international humanitarian law in situations of transitional justice very often. And therefore I appeal to those of you, all of you, except those who become defense counsels before International Criminal Court, which is an important task, to remember that you do not only have a client, but your client is also the law which protects the most vulnerable, and you are somehow the invisible court of international humanitarian law, of human rights law, of all the rules and values of transitional justice we studied during this year. And I'm very hopeful that you will do so, because already your choice of subjects of specialization shows that you want to help people. I must say, in recent weeks, I had the pleasure to read many of your master and LLM papers, and I must say, I had the feeling with this quality of argument, if they had studied, if they had specialized in international arbitration or banking law, they could have earned much more. Sorry for the parents. Sorry for the parents. Yes. But apparently you believe that it also matters in what you specialize, not only for your personal career, and I appeal to you to continue this way. This is obviously easy for a professor, because professors are paid exactly the same salary whether they teach banking law or international humanitarian law. But yes, do not manipulate the law even for a good cause, because I think that the victims need the law, and if you manipulate it even for the best cause in the world, this weakens the law and therefore weakens the protection of the most vulnerable. Okay. I now have the honor to give the floor to the Dean of the Faculty of Law, Professor Bénédicte Foix, who will say some words of welcome.
Ladies and gentlemen, dear students, dear families, dear guests, dear faculty members, it's a pleasure and an honor to say a few words on behalf of the University of Geneva Faculty of Law. First, I would like to take this opportunity to extend a warm welcome to everybody, students, of course, but also to family members, to guests, to staff members, and to professors. And I would like also to have a thought for those who could not attend this ceremony and who maybe will watch it on YouTube, as was indicated on the previous screen. Then I would like to say congratulations to all of you, dear students. You have followed with success programs which are interesting and challenging, but which are demanding too. I'm sure you enjoyed yourselves and had fun taking classes, reading assignments, and discussing issues with your colleagues and with your professors. But still, you had to work, and hard work it was. And to finish the programs with success is quite an achievement, so congratulations to all of you. As you know, the Academy is a joint venture, if I may say so, of the Graduate Institute and of the University of Geneva. In my capacity as Dean of the Law Faculty, I can certainly say that the Law Faculty is proud of you. But I think it is safe to say that I can vouch for the Graduate Institute and to say that they are proud of your accomplishments too. In a sense, you are now ambassadors for both institutions, wherever your path will lead you. I congratulate you again, and I wish you the best for your future. And last but not least, I would like to thank your professors, your staff members, as well as your director, Professor Marco Sassoli, for all they did and still do for the success of these programs and for the Academy. I thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you so much, Dean Foy. And now I give the floor to the two co-directors of the Master in Transitional Justice, Human Rights, and the Rule of Law, Thomas Unger and Frank Haldeman, who will make a special statement. You know, if you are Catholic, you understand the organization of the Academy, because for the LLM, somehow I feel directly as director, while the MTG, we need two co-directors, and therefore my speeches are always a little biased pro-LLM and executive master, but we compensate this by these speeches by the two co-directors. And I hope I'm not...
Change a bit the scenery and move in the middle here. It is always a great honor to stand here and to congratulate our students for their achievements. It is also a moment to thank, obviously, our faculty and our staff at the Academy for the support, efforts, and collaboration. The Master on Transitional Justice, and in fact all our masters at the Academy, are only possible because of teamwork. And it's a time also to, and these evenings are moments to thank the actors involved. But let's come back to our students, the main actors here today. And it's a great achievement, really, what you achieved this year, and to finish a quite challenging master's program. And you can and you should be proud of yourself. Transitional justice, a discipline that looks into how societies move out after or move forward after mass human rights violations, atrocities, mass crimes, is not an easy topic or an easy discipline. It has so many dimensions. It has an institutional dimension, has a huge cultural dimension, it has individual dimensions. It's a topic that uproots you as well. It challenges you and your perception of the world. You think you understand something, have a solution for something, but the next day you wake up and you have to completely rethink yourself. There are no one-size-fits-all solutions in how societies should deal with a violent and troubled past. There's no recipe for this. It's messy, and it will remain messy. There's a risk of frustration and depression you might have even in your work, because progress is very little. There are only baby steps you might be able to achieve. But we have a responsibility to try and to make things better. And you made a decision with the Master to do so. Let me quote Samuel Beckett, who is not the most positive person on earth, but he even said, famously, ever tried, ever failed, no matter, try again, fail better. What we tried to communicate to you during this long year, and I hope we have succeeded at least in part to do this, to take responsibility in the world where we currently outsource responsibility. Be always self-reflective. Doubt easy or grand solution. As Frank's favorite author, Isaiah Berlin, said, "The bigger the claim, the bigger the lie." Be humble in the context of great suffering and victimization, but be there, stay committed, and create communities for change. From the bottom of my heart, I wish you all the best in your future endeavors.
In addition to what Thomas already said, I wanted just to share a little thought with you, a little line of thought by an author I like a lot, William James. He once wrote, "Life is in the transitions. We live prospectively as well as retrospectively." And I feel that we are actually here in a transitional class, transitioning out from one phase to another. That's how I think this quote very much reflects how human condition is, that we actually always somehow in a permanent transition. We are moving from one moment to another, from one place to another. And so every time when I'm at the graduation, I have the feeling, I think you too, Thomas, that time is passing a little bit more quickly. And every time I remember very well, still like yesterday when we first met with you students and we met in the Casese room at the time and launched the 3rd years of Masters, and now we are here celebrating the graduation. So maybe just 2 thoughts. In a couple of minutes, you will have your certificate, your well-deserved certificate. And there are 2 perhaps ways of looking at this, thinking of William James again. On the one hand, it opens doors for a new future, for new perspectives, for, I hope, very interesting projects for you. On the other hand, looking back, it's also a way of, a lived experience. It's also something you will hopefully have with you all the time, even beyond this academic track and even beyond this academic year, an experience which is not only made of academic knowledge and academic achievements, but also, I would say, an experience which is really based on new encounters, new perspectives, new points of views, and I hope very much that this will stay with you all the time. So we could now, of course, say a lot about the relation between the past and the future in transitional justice, but this would take a lot of time, and I know Professor Sassoli would be very worried about the time, so let me just say the present is also important, so let's enjoy this moment of celebrity, of festivity, and just warm congratulations again to you students of all the programs, and also to, of course, the parents and friends. Let's celebrate this. Bravo.
So thank you so much. And now I call the representatives of the most important people, the students, Mrs. Paula Padrino Villela, Mr. Emmanuel Lelong, and Lilian Apostol, to speak to us. You come.
Okay, but is this working? Yeah, I think this is working perfectly. All right, good evening, dear professors, distinguished guests, fellow students, family and friends. Welcome to the 2019 graduation ceremony. My name is Paula and I'm one of the LLM students graduating today, but also a member of the Student Council, and as such, I've been asked today to say a few words on behalf of my class on what has been our experience this year. Well, let me start by saying that summarizing the year we've had was definitely not an easy task. So I decided to just highlight a few of the things that have made this year an experience that we will most certainly never forget. So firstly, during this year, we've gotten to meet people that came from the most diverse backgrounds. In our class, we have more than 25 different nationalities managing to represent all continents. In order to start this journey at the Academy, people came all the way from places such as Brazil, Australia, Palestine, Nepal, Ethiopia, Canada, or Italy, just to mention a few. We had a truly friendly class, and we managed to support each other throughout what can be described as probably one of the most intense and challenging academic years that we've ever had. I personally could not have wished for better classmates, and I believe that this is a common feeling for us all. Thank you all for your strength and for helping us getting through the most tough times during this year, whether it was endless Mondays during the first semester, reaction papers, IHL pleadings, exams, and of course, job applications. Although we began this year as classmates, we soon became friends. We became much more than that. We became neighbors in some instances. We also became therapists and library mates. And even some people found love, which is very nice. I want to take this opportunity to highlight those incredible moments that we spent together outside of the classroom. Those evenings cooking pizza, to those days having a few beers until late at night. And of course, who can forget those Picciotto cinema sessions watching the disappointing last season of Game of Thrones. Yeah, we did that. A particularly bonding moment was our trip to Belgrade. Our study trip, it was interesting. Despite losing residence permits at the airport, wallets being stolen in the middle of the street, and getting a last-minute visa from the consulate, it was a great opportunity to go to the field and to visit organizations who implement on a daily basis the legal principles that we study in class every day. We also discovered that those of us with the shyest personalities can be the best at playing Cards Against Humanity, and those of the nicest members can also be the best at playing Mafia. Now, on a more serious note, I would like to thank all of our professors for sharing their passion and knowledge with us. It has been an honor to learn from the best, and we are very fortunate to have had you all as our mentors. In addition to this, there's certain people that I think deserve a very special thank you, and those are our wonderful teaching assistants, which I see some of you are here with us today. I would like to apologize on behalf of the class for the emails sent by students at indecent hours at night. Yeah, they were panicking, so sorry about that. And I would like to also apologize for the endless questions during our tutorials. We would like to thank you all for your help. We really could not have done this without you. Finally, throughout this year, we've become IHL and human rights experts. We've learned a new language, and we managed to use a high number of acronyms in a sentence and still managed to understand each other, so that was good. Now, this LLM has given us the knowledge to go to the outside world and help make a change. Some of us will go and work in international organizations here in Geneva. Others will return to their home countries and work there. Some will work passionately in NGOs. And others will start their PhDs in fascinating topics. No matter where our paths might take us, I'm sure our future is bright. We must never forget the values that we learned at the academy. And in the years to come, we should keep fighting with the same strength, passion, and enthusiasm for the respect of IHL and human rights, wherever we go. Dear friends, congratulations, we made it.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. The Director of the Geneva Academy, the Dean of the Faculty of Law, University of Geneva, co-directors of the Masters of Transitional Justice, Human Rights and the Rule of Law, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It is a privilege for me to address this body on behalf of the Masters of Advanced Studies in Transitional Justice, Human Rights and the Rule of Law, 2019 graduating class. I want to express how incredibly proud and humbled I am to belong to this class and how honored I am to owe this moment to them. As I reflect on the past academic year, I think back to the challenges of being an academic student studying transitional justice. I see a set of students from dissimilar cultural, professional, and academic backgrounds from Uganda, USA, Italy, Argentina, Iran, Qatar, Vietnam, South Korea, Ukraine, Colombia, Syria, South Africa, Portugal, Spain, Canada, Kosovo, Kenya, Peru, Armenia, Brazil, Netherlands, Rotuma, Fiji, and Cameroon, who for the first time, with somehow naive minds in the transitional justice paradigm, were determined to work as a team to understand the project and develop policies meant to contribute to reduce the biodebris in the field. I reminisce on the first day of school, how impatient and eager it was for us to regroup and how convivial the academic staff received us. In our widest imagination, no one imagined how challenging the year would be or what was expected of us. But with minds like Spartans, we knew we would triumph all odds. Our conviction resonates in the continuous commitment of the Academy to provide us with the best it can offer in order to ensure proper interaction into, say, theoretical and practical learning techniques to guarantee a comfortable state with respect to our chosen field and our future career focus. In the words of Jim Rohn, we knew we had to do something. There was no need for excuse, so we found a way, irrespective of the tight paper submission deadline and the demanding nature of the entire study. We knew it was incumbent on us to deliver as a recognition of the sacrifices already made by the Academy. To ensure proper understanding of techniques and principles in a dynamic, challenging, and expanding field like transitional justice, the Academy, in her constant strive for excellence, continually organized workshops, in-class discussions, and seminars with high-ranking professionals in the transitional justice industry, such as Pablo de Greve, to educate us on best practices, developments in the field, and answer to our numerous questions. These efforts were complemented with an academic trip to Poland and a sophisticated brain-draining spring school, where we had the opportunity to work in teams with external candidates from around the world under the mentorship of Frank and Thomas, with Howard Verney as the field expert to fine-tune proposals on transitional justice-related cases and adopt best approaches to such cases. Ladies and gentlemen, we are proud to celebrate this day and even more proud that we fought for our dreams to become reality. But as Shonda Rhimes submitted, dreams do not come true just because you dream them. It's hard work that makes things happen and create the change. I salute the hard work and resilience of my mates, and I am confident that we shall take this fighting spirit to the next challenge in our professional lives. To our professors, lecturers, and teaching assistants, we value your inputs, advice, and most importantly, your devotedness towards ensuring that we get the best and retain the basics. In the words of C.J. Blythe, was that magnifique. Your impetus in our lives is invaluable. We saw and will always appreciate the sacrifices you made for us. You never saw us less, but were ready and punctual at all times to provide answers to our worries. I imagine how demanding and worrisome it gets, addressing the needs and concerns from every student. But what makes it special is the prompt and selfless reply to each worry. For that, I would like to thank Danny, Lucy, and the Academy staff for your tireless effort in molding my cohort into the best professionals that we could possibly be. Greatness abounds in people who acknowledge, because if you're ungrateful, then you aren't great. We wish to profoundly acknowledge and appreciate our sponsor, the Fond Solidarité Internationale. Without your sponsorship scheme, many dreams would be blown away like a candlelight. The beautiful faces, unforgettable memories, and incredible people we've met through the Academy will forever be a hallmark in our lives, both personally and professionally. Today we celebrate consciously, bearing in mind that you made it possible for us to share in this moment. Again, we thank you. Class of 2019, it is now up to us to go live our most abundant lives, equipped with the skills and assets we've gained during our time at the Academy. I challenge you to fearlessly pursue your purpose in this life, leaning on the understanding that each of us bears a solution for some of humanity's most grueling needs. I look forward to the endless societal contributions that we each will make, and I wish you all the best in your future endeavors. Thank you very much.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, dear professors, fellow students, parents, of course, assistants, not at last. Well, it's kind of difficult for me, after all that has been said already, to say something new, though I am trying to do this. But let me break a bit this official chain of officiality that we have now. And I remember that when I learned this year in the Academy, I learned not only in the lessons, I learned more in the breaks between the lessons, because there we discussed most interesting questions. one of the questions that I now remember, that we had this crazy idea how to apply humanitarian law, how to classify the conflicts depicted in the Game of Thrones series. So imagine what we are going to discuss there. But my point is that this brought me an idea for my today's speech, that the same movie finished with very interesting idea about the stories. Wars, peace, they come and go. People die, unfortunately. But stories remain. And now I'm going to tell you the story about the academy. First, this is my personal story. I'm coming from a small, insignificant country in the middle of Eastern Europe, which is dragged between major powers. I deliberately will not call my country and none other countries. But we have that conflict there, frozen conflict there. And this brought me an idea to learn more than I know. And I came with this idea in the academy. I took the knowledge here and I tried to apply this knowledge and to understand from where I'm coming from. Next story is about people, and I mean students. But I realized that every student who came to the academy brought his own story, his or her own story. And from all these stories, we created this spirit of academy in which I learned also from their stories, they learned from my stories. And this brings me to another story. This is a professor's story. Our professors comes, each and every one, with his or her own story, with the story of humanitarian law, with public international law, story of migrants, story of transitional justice, and so on. So many stories. And we provoke them as students, we entrapped them with questions, and they were interesting even for them because they also learned from us. So in the end, we have the whole story of the academy, and that story which remains. Because even now, this graduation is actually an end for a year, but the story remains. And that is my message to you. The story of the academy will remain with you. You will have this certificate, you will have the knowledge that the story, or that's it, what is important, that will remain through years and years. So in some universities, the graduation ceremony is called commencement. This comes from a well-known French word to commence, to start something. So this is actually not an ending. This is actually a new beginning. So I wish you, all of you, a new beginning and make another story.
Now I have the honor and the pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker, Dr. Philip Grant, who has, for different reasons, the best titles to be our keynote speaker for all the three masters tonight. He studied law at the Faculty of Law of the University of Geneva. He is Doctor of Laws of the University of Geneva with a thesis in constitutional law. He is an alumnus of the Geneva Academy. We will not invite all alumni to make keynote speech. You have to do at least as much as he did in practice. Indeed, after and while practicing law in a law firm, he had an, in my view, essential idea that the law should not remain in the law books, and that to end impunity, you don't have to go to Syria. You can start in Geneva, and this was the starting point of Trial, now Trial International, an NGO of which he is the founder and now the executive director, and which started by the idea that, at least in Switzerland, the codes are good, but they are not applied. To apply universal jurisdiction for international crimes, and this you can start in Geneva on the case of Geneva and in Switzerland, and then obviously Trial International expanded, and he will certainly explain us, but this shows that you have to have an idea, and then you have to implement the idea, and obviously the Academy is so proud of him that perhaps we influenced his ideas by the courses he took in the LLM. Dear Philip, welcome. We are looking forward to you.
It's a good evening, everyone, and congratulations to all of you graduating tonight. When you signed up for your master's degree at the Geneva Academy, you agreed to push yourselves to become professionals, or to become better professionals in a field that is ripe with atrocious acts, unspeakable horrors, and that seem to see history repeat itself over and over and over again. Those entering the field of transitional justice, those trying to uphold the rule of law in armed conflicts, those seeking to see justice delivered might be well advised to remember the sign that Dante Alighieri put up over 700 years ago. All hope abandon ye who enter here. Indeed, just look at Syria these days. Just look at what is happening in Myanmar, the situations in Libya, in Afghanistan, what is ongoing in the DRC, and in so many other places. In exactly 2 weeks from today, we will be celebrating two tremendous events in world history that took place on the same date in the same country. On November 9, 1938, the Nazi regime in Germany launched a widespread pogrom against its Jewish population, known as Kristallnacht, the Night of Broken Glass. Homes, synagogues, businesses, schools were attacked and torched by angry mobs and well-trained governmental groups of thugs. Close to 100 Jews were murdered, and about 30,000 were arrested. The hounds had been let loose, and the gates were flung open that would down the road lead to Treblinka, to Belzec, to Auschwitz, and other death camps, as well as to the use of the Einsatzgruppen in the killing fields of Eastern Europe. On November 9, another November 9, again in the evening, again in Germany, another tremendous historical event took place. After months of protest, in 1989, the Berlin Wall fell. In a matter of hours, 30 years ago, the wall was swarmed, the wall was stormed, it was climbed, and eventually it was knocked down. Within weeks, European communist dictatorships all but disappeared. Like you, I entered 15 years ago what was the predecessor to the Academy. I did not do it with a sense of despair, with an understanding that working in the field of international humanitarian law was akin to entering Dante's 9 circles of hell. But on the other hand, neither did I undertake a new round of studies with the conviction that the world would really change, with the conviction that violence would really decline, with the conviction that the rule of law could truly be expanded. For the better part of the last 30 years, I've been involved in human rights work, and I have founded and headed various groups and organizations. I've seen my share of ghastly visions, and I heard my load of testimonies of horrible recollections. My personal evaluation could be very well, from my experience and from what I hear and from what I read every day, that there are more atrocities, less justice, less respect for the rule of law, more suffering than ever, that we are regressing. And in saying that, I would be untruthful. There are atrocities, to be sure. There is impunity. There is disdain for the rule of law. But that's not the whole story. It would be like saying that on November 9, only Kristallnacht happened, without recalling that on November 9, the Berlin Wall also fell down. In the way you perceive the role that you will play in your professional lives, in upholding the rule of law, in fostering reconciliation in conflict, after conflict situations, in preventing atrocities, in seeking justice for victims of grave violations, or in whatever job you will be working, what will your outlook on world events be? Will you believe that Kristallnachts are bound to happen again and again, or will you instead believe that other Berlin walls are set to fall? If you are to spend your professional lives in this field, you should try to answer for yourselves as soon as possible the Kristallnacht versus Berlin Wall question, because your philosophy, your outlook on events will have an impact on how efficient, on how imaginative, on how productive you will be. My advice is to arm yourselves with a skill that I'm not sure you were taught at the Geneva Academy, and that is a reasonable, fact-based sense of optimism. If you are to go all the way, to walk the walk, and stay involved with humanity's evils, you cannot burden yourselves either with naivety nor with cynicism. In our common domain, for progress to happen, we need fighters. We need fighters who will not drop out at the first difficulties. We need dedicated and well-trained professionals who have their sight set on the horizon, who know that the road is long, that the path is harsh and twisted, but that eventually some improvements are bound to happen. For that, we need to leave naivety aside. And by that, I mean any kind of magical thinking that human nature can be entirely reformed, that states, armed groups, or corporations will run on principles rather than on interests. No, that will certainly not happen. But we also need to put cynicism and despair out of the way, the belief that things never change, because they actually do. Often one small step at a time, taking humanity not towards a perfect state, but towards incremental improvements. There is no historical law. It doesn't have to be necessarily that way. But if you honestly try to look at the trends over time, some progress does happen. In the field I am most familiar with, the fight against impunity, let me suggest that in the past 30 years, since I started my career as an activist, there has been actually quite a huge number of Berlin walls who fell. Quite some achievements that should give us limited but reasonable hope. Let me give you 5 examples. The first one, new institutions have been created. We've seen the setting up of international tribunals, of hybrid courts, of the creation of new investigative mechanisms, even when the Security Council was blocked, see the IIIM on Syria, or see other mechanisms, the IIMM on Myanmar, and numerous fact-finding missions or commissions of inquiries on Libya, on Sudan, on Burundi, and other situations. Second, a large number of truth commissions have been set up, sowing new seeds of prevention and contributing, as the one, for example, ongoing in the Gambia today, certainly illustrates, to sometimes massive changes in the perception of what happened, in uncovering the truth of past violations and laying the ground for justice and reparations. And even in some Western countries, we're now starting to grapple, to deal with the problems of the past. See what happened, for example, yesterday in Spain. Third, on top of that, we have seen the growth of new and very active non-state actors. From legal standard-setting work to evidence gathering, from advocacy to litigation, there are growing numbers of NGOs that are covering new grounds. Some even trying to convince rebel groups to sign up to international standards. Others developing tech tools that will enable to gather evidence and safeguard it for future trials. You even have other actors who are running a large pool of experts that can be sent on the ground as soon as possible when crime scenes need to be investigated. 4, there are actually many more trials taking place. States increasingly, albeit not yet thoroughly, states do investigate crimes committed not only on their territory, but also abroad on the basis of universal jurisdiction, as Professor Sassoli mentioned. Dozens have even set up specialized war crimes units to better deal with difficult cases. Based on the Pinochet precedent, we've seen even a former head of state sentenced to life in prison for war crimes and crimes against humanity in a third country that had nothing to do with the crimes to begin with. I'm talking about the former president of Chad, Hissène Habré. Next month, there will be a new trial, a Rwandan genocide trial starting in Belgium. Early next year in Switzerland, a trial will start against a former Liberian warlord for various crimes, including recruitment of child soldiers. There are dozens more examples in numerous countries, and the trend is clearly going in that direction. Fifth example, business people and corporations are less immune from prosecution. For the first time since the Second World War, the crime of pillage is being investigated in some countries. Corporate accountability is a vast new field in the making, where you will see powerful actors from Shell to BNP Paribas, from rogue entrepreneurs on the ground trying to buy looted minerals from rebel groups to armed traders. They will be investigated and eventually prosecuted. Let me try to give you maybe a more concrete illustration taken from the work of my organization. For those who don't know much about Trial International, we are a litigating NGO active here in Switzerland, trying to make sure that perpetrators of international crimes present on Swiss territory are investigated and brought to justice. We also investigate cases of corporations complicit in such crimes. But the core of our work happens on the ground in various countries, from Bosnia to Nepal, from the Gambia to the DRC or Burundi. And I'd like to give you an example of cases ongoing in the DRC. Earlier this week, don't know if I should touch any other button. Earlier this week, I was reading a heartbreaking witness statement taken from a trial that is ongoing in the South Kivu, a small province in the east of that huge country that is the Democratic Republic of the Congo. It was the words of a woman who had been gang raped by members of a rebel group and who amazingly had found the courage to seek justice and to give her testimony to the judges running the trial. I won't go into the details, not wanting to crash tonight's celebration. But it was just one testimony out of many in one of those Kristallnacht situations where rebel groups and army units often go on rampage, pillaging, raping, and killing as they go. The testimony was given in the course of a trial of a man called Frédéric Ali Mazi Mouzada, a rebel leader arrested 1.5 years ago, along with 4 of his accomplices. It's a large-scale trial involving over 300 victims from 15 different villages, victims and survivors of sexual violence for a large extent, but also of murder, torture, and destruction of property. My organization has been deeply involved in making sure that such a trial take place. We have been documenting those violations since 2018, laying out the legal strategy, training the lawyers who would intervene and support the victims in court. This trial is slowly coming to a close. After weeks of hearings, next Monday, the prosecutors and the defense lawyers will plead their case, will give their final closing statements, and a verdict will soon happen afterwards. Another trial that we are actively engaged in has been going on for months in the province just north of South Kivu, well, North Kivu, where another vicious warlord, Sheka, that's his name, is on trial with about 600 victims this time seeking justice. It is, I believe, the largest trial that we've ever been involved in, with a verdict hopefully coming in a few months. What should we make of these cases? I really believe that whether we see here only other Kristallnacht situations happening, with gangs of thugs pillaging, raping, and killing, with the state just looking away, or whether we see here Berlin Wall moments, that perception has true consequences. If we believe there is a wall to take down, the wall of impunity in this case, then we can reasonably, with optimism, start to organize. Then we can really seriously begin to advocate. Then we can start to train the local actors, share expertise, cooperate, litigate, inform. And this is precisely what happened in those two instances, as well as in the other multiple trials that we're involved in. Numerous civil society organizations coalescing around those cases to support the brave survivors, wanting to testify, making sure their medical, psychosocial needs, their security needs, their legal needs also are being met. And the results? Well, in the past 4 years or so, we've supported and represented well over 1,000 victims in the provinces of the Kivus, north and south, investigating war crimes, laying out legal strategies for cases to go to court, training lawyers, accompanying and representing victims in court. Over that period, we have obtained over 25 convictions of perpetrators, often to long sentences, including life in prison, for quite a number of high police officers, high-ranking police and military officers, for commanders of rebel groups, and even in one case, a local parliamentarian. And as you've heard, the biggest of our trials are actually still running, with more to come in the near future. Had I had to start with the conviction that such changes were possible, that I could get into the business of fighting impunity, not out of duty, not out of rage, but with the understanding that by combining reasonable optimism with intelligence, with imagination, with expertise and commitment, by truly working not to react to something, but to construct the future, I think that I would have made a much better activist and later director. So armed with your new academic baggage, I hope you will be able to solve the Kristallnacht versus Berlin Wall question for yourselves and start on your professional path to bringing small, incremental improvements in a field that so much yearns for it. I hope that you will find the job positions in which you will become the agents of change that the world so much needs, free of naivety or cynicism, and proving Dante wrong along the way. Oh, and maybe you might actually become very successful in your work and make more than just incremental changes, but participate maybe in life-changing moments. Because there's another angle, actually, to the November 9 issue. It was also on a November 9 that the ICRC received the second of its 3 Nobel Peace Prizes. With that, let me finish with the often quoted passage from the anthropologist Margaret Mead. Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has. Congratulations again on your graduation, and go change the world.
Stop this. So thank you very much, Philip, for your very forceful keynote speech. And now I have the honor to give the floor to a representative of the Henri Dunant Foundation. And if I understand correctly, it will be the president, Roger Durand, and then the prize will be presented by François Bugnon, who is a stable humanitarian. He worked for a long time for the International Committee of the Red Cross, is now an honorary member of the Assembly, and was for a certain time my boss. So, thank you, Roger, and thank you, François. Please.
Alors, je vais me lancer dans un exercice dangereux, c'est-à-dire vous parler en français à Genève, mais je pense qu'il faut quand même au moins une personne ait le courage de le faire dans ce monde où l'anglais est en train d'envahir toutes nos intelligences et nos modes de communication. Donc, nous avons fondé en 1985 un prix Henri Dunant, grâce à l'initiative de Madame Pierrette Mourgedalgue, une descendante d'Henri Dunant, et de la Société Henri Dunant. Je vous lis l'article 4 des statuts, c'est peut-être le plus simple pour vous expliquer nos buts. La Fondation a pour but de récompenser toute personne, tant physique que morale, qui a œuvré de façon remarquable en faveur de l'approfondissement, du rayonnement, du renouvellement des idées philanthropiques d'Henri Dunant. Alors, tout d'abord, on peut rappeler les idées philanthropiques les plus connues, c'est-à-dire la protection des victimes de la guerre et du militarisme, les blessés, les soldats blessés, les prisonniers de guerre, les jeunes soldats traumatisés par la violence de leurs actes ou par leur formation dans les écoles de recrues, et aussi les francs-tireurs. Ça nous sera intéressant pour la suite des opérations. Henri Dunant était aussi très attentif au sort des civils qui étaient victimes des atrocités ou des excès dans la zone des combats. Et puis, il s'est aussi intéressé, surtout à la fin de sa vie, aux classes les plus pauvres de la société, c'est-à-dire celles qui souffrent plus tant du militarisme que des actes de guerre. Un autre de ses engagements concerne les victimes de persécutions, c'est-à-dire des persécutions religieuses, militant dans la société évangélique, alors naturellement il a dénoncé les atrocités qu'ont subies les Huguenots ou les évangéliques, mais aussi, surtout dans la fin de sa vie, les victimes israélites des pogroms et de la persécution. Mais il s'est aussi intéressé aux victimes, on pourrait dire, socioculturelles. Par exemple, les génies méconnus, malheureux ou persécutés, les prophètes, les visionnaires. Et de temps en temps, en lisant ses mémoires, on a l'impression qu'il pensait assez souvent à lui-même dans ce cas-là. Un autre de ses engagements concerne le féminisme. Alors, c'est du féminisme à l'ancienne. Il ne faudrait pas confier ces slogans aujourd'hui au combat des femmes. Mais la première chose qu'il a faite, c'est de valoriser le rôle de la femme dans l'aide humanitaire. Et on peut dire que son témoignage de Solferino sur l'action des femmes qui soignaient spontanément les militaires blessés est assez remarquable parce qu'il donnait aux femmes un rôle actif qui sortait de leur attribution traditionnelle. Mais il est allé plus loin, puisqu'il a créé une croix verte dans les années 1890 qui devait être pour les femmes la même protection que la Croix-Rouge l'était pour les militaires blessés. mais malheureusement, il n'a pas abouti dans cette quête, parce qu'ensuite, il s'est lancé dans une autre campagne dont je parlais tout à l'heure, mais il insistait beaucoup sur le fait que la femme, dans la société moderne, devait être un facteur de paix, un pilier de la famille, la garante de la civilisation. Féminisme à l'ancienne mode, mais féminisme quand même au XIXe siècle. Un autre de ces combats, qui était courageux à l'époque où les grands empires, qui étaient l'Europe occidentale, la Russie et les États-Unis, se jetaient sur le monde entier pour le conquérir et le dévaliser, il faut le dire ainsi, Dunant s'est véritablement lancé dans une croisade anticolonialiste. Lui qui avait investi beaucoup de son argent et celui des autres en Algérie 30 ans auparavant. C'est aussi un exemple d'évolution des objectifs et des convictions de quelqu'un. Et puis, son dernier combat, c'est celui du pacifisme, donc la lutte contre à la fois le militarisme, l'impérialisme, les budgets militaires, la formation d'armées permanentes, etc. Et il essayait, c'est une quête que nous faisons encore aujourd'hui, de promouvoir l'arbitrage international. Alors, par rapport à tous ces engagements assez disparates, mais quand même qui obéissent à une certaine vision de l'humanité, nous avons pensé qu'il était intéressant de pouvoir à la fois remercier et honorer des personnes qui, d'une manière ou d'une autre, par leurs recherches ou par leurs efforts de communication ou par leurs témoignages, contribuaient à mieux faire connaître ces idéaux d'Henri Dunant et, si possible même, à permettre qu'ils soient mieux installés dans ce monde. Alors nous avons créé 2 prix, un prix terrain qui, lui, essaye d'honorer des personnes qui, dans leur milieu naturel, ou bien promeuvent le droit international humanitaire, ou bien font de la communication simple sur les institutions qu'Henri Dunant a fondées, notamment la Croix-Rouge internationale. Et puis nous administrons donc un second prix en collaboration étroite avec l'Académie, c'est-à-dire un prix recherche. Et aujourd'hui, c'est ce prix que nous allons le plaisir de pouvoir attribuer. Et je laisse la parole, dans ce sens, à mon ami François Bugnon.
Thank you very much. Dear students, distinguished professors, ladies and gentlemen, Roger just recalled the origin of the Henry Dunant Prize. Since 2005, the Henry Dunant Prize has been awarded every year in close cooperation between the Geneva Academy of International Humanitarian Law and Human Rights and the Henry Dunant Prize Foundation. In practice, the Academy makes a preliminary selection of the LLM papers submitted in the current year in order to identify the best papers in academic terms that respond to the objectives and criteria of the Henry Dunant Prize. The papers thus selected are submitted to a jury made up of 2 professors of the Geneva Academy, 1 representative of the International Committee of the Red Cross, and 2 members of the Board of Trustees of the Henry Dunant Prize Foundation. This year, the members of the jury have received 4 LLM papers selected by the professors of the Geneva Academy. And I would say our task was extremely difficult because all 4 papers were of the highest academic standard. And I would like, on behalf of the foundation, to avail myself of this opportunity to thank the Academy for the preliminary work they have made in this selection. After having read with all due attention the 4 papers submitted to them and taking into account the criteria set up in the statutes of the foundation, the Henry Dunant Prize Foundations, the members of the jury unanimously decided to award the 2019 Henry Dunant Prize for Research to Mrs. Lizaveta Tarasevich. Mrs. Lizaveta Tarasevich for her memoir, Participation of Non-State Armed Groups in the Formation of Customary International Humanitarian Law, Arising Challenges and Possible Solutions. The members of the jury considered that Mrs. Lizaveta Tarasevich broached an extremely difficult subject, but also a subject of a burning actuality. Indeed, while studying the question of the possible participation of non-state armed groups in the formation of customary international humanitarian law applicable to non-international armed conflicts, Mrs. Tarasevich actually also broached a much broader issue of the binding force of international humanitarian law for non-state armed groups, as well as the question of the respect of international humanitarian law in case of non-international armed conflicts, by far the vast majority of today's armed conflicts. The members of the jury paid special attention to the innovative and exploratory nature of this memoir, as well as the fact that it incorporates concrete proposals. Indeed, while analyzing the practical implications that would derive from the fact of taking into account the practice of non-state armed groups in the formation of customary international humanitarian law, Mrs. Tarasevich submitted concrete proposals which might help such armed groups acquire a form of ownership of this rule. And this, in turn, should induce them to better respect that branch of the law. The members of the jury noted that Mrs. Tarasevich analyzed the advantages and the drawbacks of her different proposals without prejudice and in the most objective and scientific manner. Finally, the members of the jury noted that the conclusions of Mrs. Tarasevich, aiming at taking into account the practice of non-state armed groups in the formation of customary international humanitarian law, go against the dominant trend among governments and public opinion, not only in Western countries, but also in the rest of the world, in particular since the attacks of September 11, 2001, against the Twin Towers of the World Trade Center in New York, a trend which aims at rejecting non-state armed groups outside of the pale of international humanitarian law and human rights law by branding them as outlaws and treating them as such. Experience proves, however, that if states label insurgents and other members of non-state armed groups as outlaws and deny them the benefit of international humanitarian law and human rights law, it is vain to expect that such actors will respect humanitarian law, since they know that they can expect no protection in case of capture. If states systematically brand their enemies as outlaws or terrorists, whatever their behavior in conducting hostilities, they should not be surprised if such enemies behave as outlaws. This shows the difficulty, but also the great importance of the subject chosen by Mrs. Tarasevich. Despite such difficulties, she dealt with this topic in accordance with the highest scientific standard. The link with the moral heritage of Henry Dunant is obvious. For all these reasons, the members of the jury considered that the LLM paper submitted by Mrs. Elisabetta Tarasevich is fully in line with the ideals of Henry Dunant and decided by a unanimous decision to award to her the 2019 Henry Dunant Prize for Research. Dear Madame Tarasevich, I am pleased to convey to you the warmest congratulations of the members of the jury, as well as those of the members of the Board of Trustees of the Henry Dunant Prize Foundation.
Congratulations.
Good evening, everyone, dear guests, professors, fellow students, families, and friends. Before I will give you a brief overview of my paper, please allow me to start with some words of gratitude. First, I would like to thank Foundation Henri Dunant for awarding me the Henri Dunant Prize, the Research Prize. I am truly touched and honored that the jury came to the conclusion that the ideas found in my paper have the potential to deepen, spread, and renew the ideas of Henri Dunant. This assessment is very encouraging and inspires me to continue my professional life in IHL. Second, I want to express my gratitude to professors and the teaching assistants of the Academy for providing me with the experience that enabled me to write this paper. And of course, I want to give a special thanks to Professor Marco Sassoli, my supervisor. Without his valuable comments and kind encouragement, my paper would definitely not turn out the way it did. And more generally, I want to thank him for his brilliant course, during which he always encouraged students to form and hold their own opinions, even if they were different from his own. Thirdly, I would like to say thanks for my family for being a source of endless support and motivation. They even made an effort to understand my paper and provide opinions, although none of them is a lawyer. I would also like to heartily thank my boyfriend, Benedict, for always being the strongest moral support and at the same time the main challenger of my legal arguments presented in the paper. They highly benefited from your advice, and I thank you for that. And finally, I cannot miss the chance to thank my classmates, all of those bright and inspiring people, and I was able to learn so much through the conversation and exchange with you, and I will be always thankful for that. Now I'm done with the most difficult part and move into the easy part, which is explaining this difficult task in a few minutes, but I will promise I will do my best to fulfill it. So let me start with my motivation behind choosing this topic. As you may have seen, many conflicts in our times are of a non-international character, which means conflicts in which states fight an armed group or armed group fight against each other. As all of us can see as well, these conflicts result in extreme human suffering. And if we want to address this suffering effectively, we need to have in place effective regulations. And unfortunately, the written rules governing the internal conflicts still remain weak as compared to those governing the international ones. Customary law, which is unwritten law formed by the repetitive state conduct, can be useful in filling the gaps in the written regulations. However, as of now, the conduct of those armed groups involved in the internal armed conflicts does not play any role in the formation of custom, and armed groups have no say in making the law. Conversely, however, we expect them to follow these rules. And this status quo leads to two major problems. The first problem is of a practical nature. The rules regulating non-international armed conflicts are not always realistic for non-state armed groups, as they have been formed by actions of states and designed to regulate their conduct. The second problem is that non-state armed groups do not have a sense of ownership of the rules of customary norms, as they didn't participate in their creation, and consequently, they often reject to be bound by them. Involving armed groups in the creation of the rules would address these problems. However, this endeavor also poses a number of challenges. In the eyes of some, the inclusion of armed groups into norm-making would elevate them to the level of states. Some even say that involving armed groups in the creation of custom would be to the detriment of IHL and disrupt the formation of custom, which is, of course, essential for the functioning of international law. Nevertheless, I am convinced that letting armed groups participate in the creation of the rules they're bound by will, in the end, enhance the compliance and thus lead to more effective realization of these norms. This is why, in my paper, I sought to identify the main challenges related to the consideration of non-state armed groups' practice in the formation of customary law and suggest solutions that would address these challenges. In my thesis, basically, I departed from I imagined the situation where we have armed groups participating in the creation of customary law, and I came up with some conceptual difficulties which might make this process more complicated. I found 6 of them, but I do not want to occupy the whole evening tonight, so I will briefly talk about 2 in the least technical way. Firstly, I would like to speak about what I call the selection problem, which poses the question of how should we select the armed groups which would participate in the creation of customary law when they are so different from states and so different from each other at the same time. And I analyzed several possible propositions to that, such as linking the participation to control over the territory or linking to them to possessing certain characteristics by the groups. But I, however, came to the conclusion that the only determinative factor should be the actual participation of a non-state armed group in a non-international armed conflict. Which means that the practice of all armed groups participated in an IAC must be considered. Only such criteria are in essence objective, which means that there are fewer opportunities for their manipulation. And moreover, this approach ensures that the practice of all participants of armed conflicts is included. This led me to the most difficult challenge that I faced in my paper, which is how we would consider the practice of those armed groups which in principle reject to comply with any rules. But I will not address it during my speech. You can find it in my paper because otherwise I again will take the whole evening. So another problem I will briefly address is the temporary character problem, which means that, as many of you know, formation of customary law traditionally requires some level of continuity and repetition. And while this problem doesn't arise with states, which are inherently permanent entities, it is unclear how and when non-international armed groups can fulfill this requirement. Would their temporary nature influence their ability to participate in norm creation? And more importantly, would the participation of the groups of today in norm creations would give the sense of ownership to the groups of tomorrow? In my view, this should not bar the group's participation. Firstly, the existence of armed conflict implies that parties are engaged in war-related activities, if not every day, then at least so frequently that the conflict doesn't cease to exist. Thus, the practice of armed conflict is necessarily more frequent than the state practice on, for example, delimitation of maritime borders. Thus, we get rid of one problem. Secondly, the analysis of several authors show that armed groups often adopt rules from other groups and model their internal regulations after other groups as well, what together signifies that temporary nature of armed groups would not have a detrimental effect on their participation in CIHL formation. I want to conclude my address by explaining how allowing non-state armed groups to participate in the formation of customary rules relates to the humanitarian ideas of Henri Dunant. Henri Dunant's ideas have not lost any of their significance, and in fact, in today's world, it is more important than ever to uphold them. However, I believe that in order to do so, it is crucial not to use them in a simplistic way. In order to achieve more humanity, more commitment, and more compliance in the long run, we have to take unconventional decisions today. International law has been and remains state-centered. It's made by states and it primarily addresses states, and insisting on such approach might be justified in other branches of law. However, I believe that not in IHL, because IHL regulates the conduct of the parties on the battlefield, and it's important to keep in mind its main objective, which is to alleviate human suffering caused by armed conflicts. As had been best put by the International Criminal Tribunal for the former Yugoslavia, a state sovereignty-oriented approach has been gradually supplanted by a human being-oriented approach. And for such approach to be fully realized, we need to pave the way to considerations of what is best for human beings affected by armed conflicts. And these human beings would benefit from better compliance with the norms of IHL, which can be significantly enhanced by the participation of non-state armed groups in the creation of customary norms. This is how I believe my research paper becomes practically relevant and how it can help to further Henri Dunant's ideas of humanity, communication, and determination in our times. I thank you, all of you.
Thank you very much, and congratulations also from my side. And now I have the honor to announce the students who got the best LLM and the best Master in Transitional Papers prize this year. And first for the LLM, it is Mrs. Zoe Lafazani, who her paper was supervised by Dr. Anissa Belal, who is a great specialist on armed groups. So you see this year there's a lot of armed groups, but I can assure you it's not the same subject. Also, for laypersons, it must sound very similar. And then I have the honor to announce that Mrs. Valeria Reyes Menendez received the prize for the best MTJ paper for transitional justice in context of grave humanitarian crisis and displacement, a draft proposal for the case of Venezuela. Congratulations. So, and now we can go up to the graduation. You had to wait for a long time for the graduation. I would suggest we start according to the historical order. It's first the LLM, and then the MTJ, and then the Executive Master. This is the custom. And it was the custom even under my predecessor that we follow this order in the graduation. And I suggest that Danny Diogo reads out the names, and we have here they will be also announced on the, voilà. And then the students will receive their diploma and perhaps remain nearby because then we can make immediately a group photo of the LLM and then of the MTJ and finally of the executive master students.
And Arthur will also take individual pictures of you, so you can, when you have the due diploma, just stay for a few seconds in the corner and turn around to him. So the first 2018-2019 LLM graduate is Fekade Abebe, cum laude. Congratulations. Elias Alihi, magna cum laude. Congratulations. Julia Asman de Freitas Macedo, magna cum laude. Congratulations. Annabelle Basile, cum laude. Congratulations. Chloé Collier, cum laude. Farnaz Desfouli, congratulations. Jon Ayerman, cum laude. Jan Jason Danner, cum laude. Radoslava Karabasheva, cum laude. Zoe Lafetzani, magna cum laude. Ignacio Lepro, magna cum laude. Giorgio Macor, summa cum laude. Eleonore Mandra, cum laude. Giulia Marcucci, cum laude. Pardon. Grace Mary, summa cum laude. Tessa Michel, cum laude. Victoria Moore, summa cum laude. Paola Padrino Villela, magna cum laude. Altea Rossi, cum laude. Anna Seitz, magna cum laude. Elisaveta Tarasevich, summa cum laude. Irene Valotti, magna cum laude.
Moi, je parle.
But not too close. And now it's the turn of the MTJ. So the first 2018-2019 MTJ graduate is Sunjung An, magna cum laude. Pleun Andriessen, magna cum laude. Andrea Baldassari, magna cum laude. Agustina Becerra Vasquez, summa cum laude. Andra Bolsilka, magna cum laude. Tasha Carter Gordon, magna cum laude. Patricia da Silva Coutinho, magna cum laude. Emmanuel Elong, cum laude. Ahmad Galmeldian, cum laude. Belen Grau Contreras, magna cum laude. Lilith Ovanisian, magna cum laude. Deborah Ito Ongwek, cum laude. Yazamin Kashfi, summa cum laude. Christina Martin, cum laude. Lin Nong, magna cum laude. Mayara Petri da Silva, congratulations. Valeria Reyes Menendez, summa cum laude. Arm Shannon, cum laude. Augustine Sokimi, magna cum laude. And now we finish with the Executive Master from 2014-2016, Yann Abraham. Congratulations. From 2016-2018, Hernan Estrada Roman. Congratulations. Helmut Lagos Koller. From 2017-2019, Lilian Apostol. Clarissa Spada. And finally, Delina Weshdebi. Congratulations.
Perhaps as a last word, I should explain for most of you that it is not that most executive master students fail the exam, but they are in midst of their professional life, again, obviously, and therefore many could not come or graduate at different moments of the year and will then not be able to be with us here, but be reassured that nearly all are successful, even in the executive master. And now with this, we have come to the end of the, I know did you take the picture? Yes, very good. Thank you. Congratulations again. So thank you for all your patience, and again, my warmest congratulations and wishes for your professional life, and advanced thanks in the name of the most vulnerable for whom you will work. We will now go to have the famous canapés of the Graduate Institute. Although I'm only a professor of the University of Geneva and therefore I prefer it, I must say the canapés are better. Sorry. But please remember to take also your coats and your materials, because this room will be closed when the festivities are over, and I hope the festivities will be long. Thank you very much to all of you.